Hi, everyone. Today we have with us Betty Berning, a friend from graduate school and a dairy economist. And she wears many, many hats. And a little bit of fun fact from my end is that Betty helped me bake for the first time. And I found out that I am very good at baking if I have help. I'm no good if I'm on my own. So thank you so much for joining us, Betty. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, including a fun fact?
Okay, hi, I'm Betty Berning. We went to graduate school together at Penn State, and I won't say how long ago because my children believe I am 26, so a
We'll
while
keep it
ago.
at
We'll see.
that.
What's that?
We will keep it at that.
We will keep it at that. They're figuring it out. They're getting older. Um, yeah, I right now I have a couple different contracts that I work under. So I write one day a week as a market analyst for a publication called Daily Dairy Report, and then most of my time is spent as a contributing dairy economist at High Ground Dairy. That company is based out of Chicago, and we do like brokerage, advisory, market intelligence, and then some things for dairy farmers too, all within the dairy space. So I really like it. I work on the market intelligence team. I live in Minnesota and I have three sons, and they are absolutely crazy. I thought I knew about boys before I had them, and then I had three of them in like less than 4 years, and I realized I know nothing about raising little boys, but it's a lot of fun. A fun fact about myself. So I do bake. That's true. I make sourdough now. I also worked for a baseball team as my very first career. It was a minor league team, and I had a degree in agricultural business and I love baseball, and they offered me a job. So I thought I should do this. I love sports. And I learned that sometimes our hobbies don't make good jobs. They make really good hobbies and not good jobs. And so after I did not last long, after the first season, like by Christmas time, I had found a different job, this time back in the agricultural business economic space.
Fabulous. It's surprising how we, kind of make our way into the things that we actually like to do as well as the things that, pay the bills, so to speak. Absolutely. What sparked your interest in economics? Was it a person, event, or something else?
Okay, so I was not interested in economics when I started college. I was a science major, and so I took the first year of Gen Chem, which went okay. And then I had organic chemistry my first semester of my sophomore year. And I had been a really good student, and things had always come to me really easily, and organic chemistry did not. And so I just for whatever reason, like that was one of like a setback for me, right? And instead of just being like, well, that's okay. I had friends that we all got the same grade who were like, I learned so much. And of course it was hard. They were probably B students in like in school and used to, things being more challenging. But I was like, I could never do this. It was hard. And so I say it was kind of laziness too, on my just being really honest. Like I wanted to go out with my friends. I didn't want to study at night. So I was like, I need a different major here. I'm just not sure I want to be a scientist. This is true. I also I wanted to be a plant scientist. I love gardening, and I was working on a plant breeding project, which is about as exciting as it sounds. And that kind of was also prompting me to be like, I don't like organic chemistry, and I really am not that interested in breeding plants. So I thought I'll be a business major. They always seem to have time to go out with their friends. True story, right? They were always having fun. They had time and they were not studying. So I thought I'll switch. I'll be a business major. So I switched to agricultural business. I had taken one microecon class, and everyone told me to take it because it was really easy and it made like zero sense. I did fine in it because the professor made it very easy to get a good grade, but I didn't understand anything or learn anything. And I remember thinking, I was still a science major at the time when I took the micro class. Thank God I will never have to take another one of these classes. This makes zero sense. I didn't learn anything. So then I switched to business and I was like, I guess I'll have to take more of these classes. And so then I took my first higher level econ class, and the teacher was like, oh, we use calculus to explain all these things. And all of a sudden, it started to make more sense because there was actually, it wasn't just learning all these rules like I'd been trying to do in
Mhm.
micro econ. I was trying really hard to memorize everything and I didn't get like why this, then that, and like what does it mean to be marginal? But once I learned that there's all this math behind it, like I had a framework. So I could figure out all sorts of things on my own. I didn't just have to like memorize, hundreds and hundreds of rules. I could just work off the framework to answer my own questions. And I actually really liked math a lot. I don't know. I always have said like numbers don't lie. But yeah, I love math. So it was a great fit for me. And once econ started to make more sense, then I was like, this is really interesting. I think I might like to study it more. I can use math and I can use it to like make real world decisions and model and apply it to like the business space and numbers.
Fabulous. I'm sure your instructors, they really loved the way you were thinking and performing in class because I think, we as economics instructors, we actually hope that people will get the math and use it for the tool it is and the structure it is to actually solve those decisions. So that is great. Next question. Can you tell us a little bit about your professional trajectory, and how is the work that you have done different from what happens in academia? So, I know you had, lots of different types of professional roles. So I know the audience would be interested to hear that.
Okay, yes, we'll kind of go through like the punch list of the resume. So after the failed attempt at working in baseball, I moved into lending, which that was a really difficult but really great job to have first thing out of school. And I did not have my master's. After undergrad, I worked, which was really good. I had kind of had a plan after undergrad that I was going to go back to graduate school, but I wanted to work for a few years to gain that experience. The professor that taught that first micro econ class with math had actually said to me, "You'd be a really good candidate for grad school." And I was like, "I would be." And he's like, "Yeah, you're doing really well. You seem to like this. So you'd be a really good candidate." So, listen to those things. He also said to me, like you'd say to someone like, "Do you like beer? Do you like pizza?" He's like, "Do you like math, right?" And I was like, "Sure, I like math," which he didn't mean like you like you really have to like math, which I learned in grad school. I do really like math and I did not have the math skills. So that's okay. I figured it out. Yeah, so I worked in lending for a couple years in Northwest Wisconsin, which was just a really good experience because it was very micro level. I worked with farmers and literally I would sit at their table and go through their financial statements with them. And so
Wow.
you saw how like how a little small business works. So everything like I had learned in accounting, looking at, Fortune 500's financial statements, it's very similar still, but it's just on a much smaller level and much more personal. So that was just a really good experience to understand risk management, understand how a business actually operates from a financial standpoint, and then learning like salesmanship.
Mhm.
Okay, so after that, then I did go back to graduate school, and that was at Penn State for 2 years. I got my master's degree, and my work in lending really helped me in graduate school because I was super structured. I was used to working like 8 to 5. So I'd get into school at 8, I'd work, I'd go to class, and then I'd try to be done by 5. And if I had homework, I'd do it, in the evening at home. I was a much better graduate student than I was undergrad student. Undergrad student, I was always wanted to go have fun. Graduate student, I was like, I gotta get stuff done. I'm an adult now. So yeah, I did that. And that was a great experience too, because I learned how to research. I had one research question and I wrote my master's thesis. It was around anaerobic digesters, but just kind of learning that process of
Mhm.
research, like reading the literature, understanding what kind of tools can be used, understanding advanced modeling. So that was like kind of my next step. And I really do think about that as a step in my career, not just education, but as a step in my career, because I learned a lot there. And then I wound up moving back to Minneapolis after graduate school, kind of due to some family circumstances. And I started working at General Mills. They said they wanted the vice president at the time had a master's in ag econ and was like, we need more ag economists here. We need to understand what commodity markets are doing.
Mhm.
And there I was, and it was all like right place, right time. So I was a commodity analyst to start my career there. And I just looked at like commodity prices and would come up with forecasts, risk management plans, talk about trends. And I supported some of the different buying teams. And then eventually I moved into a buying role. I bought plastics at General Mills and I also bought dairy. I bought dairy for a while there. And then my last role was in sustainability. And so, how did I use economics there? I used it, I mean, all the time because you're constantly looking at like what are prices going to do? What are good risk management decisions? Even on the buying desk when we were considering like launching new products, like there's a whole financial formula. I maybe didn't have to do it, but I had to sit in on meetings where we talked about it. Like, does this make sense? And how
Mhm.
much are we going to be paying for raw materials and transportation and to make it at the factory? And all the different things that come along with that. And then the last role there around sustainability, I wasn't sure when I first started it that I was going to like it, but what I really liked about it was a lot of like marrying up all the different parts of the supply chain and also realizing that sustainability is not just like, oh, this is an environmentally friendly practice. Like that's an element of it, but then there's also a financial element. Like, can people continue to do what they've always been doing? And there's a social element to it too. Like, is this ethical? Is this fair? Like, child labor would be an example of
Right.
like social sustainability. So,
Yeah. I will stop you there and say that I really loved the way that, you described all the things that you've done, but also the things that, the kind of lessons and the knowledge and the hacks that you kind of picked up along the way, because I know we do that subconsciously, or that is
mhm.
the hope, but to be able to kind of recognize that is great. So I love all the information that you're sharing. But yeah, go ahead. After
Okay.
General Mills, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And I've had lots of time to reflect on this because I'm not actually 26. So it's been a while since I've been at General Mills. So
Uh-huh.
I had, and then I became a mom while I was working at General Mills too. And life was kind of crazy. And I was like, I think I got to find something different to do. My husband is working out of town. I'm trying to commute from my house. We have an infant. I don't have a lot of family help. Like, how is this all going to work? I wasn't traveling once I had my son. But before that, I had been, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to like travel when I have little kids. And so there was an opportunity with the University of Minnesota to work in extension and to teach and write and present on ag business. And it just
Great.
was,
Mhm.
what I really had wanted to do was get my PhD so I could work at a land grant and do research and teach. And I thought, okay, I'm probably not going to get my PhD at this point, but this would be a great opportunity for me to work at a land grant and teach and research. So I did that for a few years. And, there I probably used my Ag Econ degree the most just because of the nature of the work. But it was great because it really was just helping small business owners, farmers figure out how do I continue to, maintain my lifestyle? How can I put groceries on the table for my family and keep this farm in the family? And so I did financial planning, I did transition planning, I started a women's program. I
Oh,
went to one of the great conferences, yeah, that they have in Nebraska. I think it's every year in Kearney. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were
women
going to
in
meet up with that.
women in
Maybe.
ag.
Yes, the Women in Ag Conference in Nebraska. Yeah, that there
Yes.
was, yeah, to learn more for my own programming, but that was really great. And then I continued to have children. So, like I said, I had three in about 4 years' time. And after the third one, I thought about going back to the university, but it just kind of wasn't going to work out. I wanted to be more part-time, and that's hard to support. So I started my own business.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yep, and started consulting work. I didn't have tons of consulting work, and I really focused a lot, honestly, on being a mom. But over time, kind of as the kids got older, I feel like this really was a blessing. In the beginning, there wasn't a lot, but over time, as more people knew I was doing it, the work kind of started to take off. But then the kids got older, so it made it easier. I think it would have been hard when they were little to have so much to do, and I think for me, I would have regretted that. So I wanted to really work in sustainability and farm to table initiatives when I started the consultancy, because
Mhm.
it seemed like there was a real need for that. But one of the surprises was it's really hard to get out of dairy, and people knew that I was good at understanding dairy markets. So that's the work that kept showing up. And I had thought, There's so many insanely talented people in dairy. Like I could like list them off that, offer price forecasts and do advisory work. This is what I thought when I started the consulting business. I do not need to put myself in an already crowded space with people who are far more talented than me. And then Derry kept calling, and I guess what that said to me was like, I am good. Actually, I am good at this, and there is room for me. There's room for talented people at the table. So now, like I said, I write 1 day a week for Daily Dairy Report. That was kind of the first thing that came along. And then the second thing that really came along was doing work with High Ground Dairy as a contributing dairy economist. So I do a lot of different things, but most of the work I would say is writing over there, and I write on domestic US markets.
Right.
So anytime there's a USDA report that comes out, or there's different like weekly newsletters we do, I send those out too, and then provide content. We do a monthly webinar too, so provide content for that, which it's fun. Like we have a really varying team, and I'm like the economist.
Wow. And who's the audience? Are they like dairy farmers only, or are all people across the dairy chain?
Yeah, good question. We have some dairy farmers. It's actually a lot of like buyers. So, food
Oh.
service, grocery. We have some, government or NGO, but it's a lot of people, traders. But yeah, it's a lot of people who use the commodity.
Okay, so you actually have to do work that caters to like write stuff, reports to different types of audiences.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, try to think about that as I'm writing. Like, if most of the readership of this report is going to be US readers, what is it they might want to know? Because the dairy market is not just the US, there's an
Right.
international aspect. Or what important international points might be good to make that a US reader just wouldn't know about, but does need to know to understand the domestic market. We do have a producer services team. Occasionally, I will do things for them, but they actually do most of, we're a little bit siloed that way. They do a lot of their own work. So, but I do interact at times. I am working with them too and trying to help them figure out like how do we make this so that it makes sense to a dairy farmer too.
Excellent. I bet it feels good to be the economist on the team and making
I
sure that, yeah, I'm sure you do. Um, you've told given us an idea about all the things that you have done. Can you share with the audience what's the one of the most enriching aspects of your work?
I really like that I help people to make decisions, and I really like that I get to take complex things and make them really simple. So I got to do that when I was working in extension, like for farmers to, take like what's going on with the farm bill and help them come up with a way to make a decision. But
Hmm.
even like in my work now, helping, big companies to figure out is now the right time to be buying product or selling product? What are my risk management goals? Just trying to take these complex ideas and synthesize them down into something that's simple. Like one of the best compliments I've ever gotten, I was sitting by a guy at dinner and we've sat by each other a couple times. He does not work at the company, but just another peer in the dairy industry, not as familiar with dairy markets though. And he just said, I've sat by you a few times at these things. And he's like, you've never once made me feel like I don't know anything about dairy markets. And I just took that as I make things really easily understandable, and I try to make sure that people are able to keep up with the conversation, and I'm good at that. And I think that's a great skill because it's good to be academic, it's good to be an intellectual, but somebody needs to be able to break things down too for those that aren't, in academia. And I'd like to think that I kind of can help bridge that divide.
Love it, love it. Absolutely. And you know what? I will tell you one thing is sometimes, we always focus on, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that. So it's very refreshing, even personally for me, to hear you say, like, and you said that twice, I'm pretty good at being a dairy economist. I'm pretty good at making complex concepts simple. So I appreciate you for saying that because more people need to kind of make a list maybe in their heads about all the things that they are good at rather than the things that they are not good at. So that's awesome. Um, Looking back, what type of professional advice would you give your younger self?
Oh boy. I think one thing is expect when you first finish school, you probably are going to get a lot of really easy tasks that you're like, why am I doing this? That does happen. And then a lot of the first years of your career, and this isn't great, but it's just kind of the way that it is like being able to complete the tasks that you're asked to do in the way that you're asked to do them. So, if your boss wants you to follow the company's project management template, like maybe you have a way that you do it, like just showing like I can follow directions and I can do it exactly the way that you need me to do it and I can get it done in a timely fashion. A lot of it's just about like checking boxes and then, hopefully over time showing that you can do that and then contributing good ideas or making suggestions and improvements. But I think I thought I would be given like really big tasks and all sorts of hard things to do and get to like really shake things up. And I do get to do that now, but it took a long time to get to that point, if that makes sense. And I wish I would have known that earlier in my career that it is kind of slow. And in the beginning, you might not be asked to do as much, and that's okay. Just try to learn everything that you can. I do think some of the skill that's being learned there too is just how to like be a good teammate and how to like when we all kind of learn to do things using certain systems or processes or the way that the leader is asking us to do them, then we can all communicate really effectively as well too. It makes things just a lot easier. It streamlines things. It's efficient, which I love.
Right, right. And you bring up a very important point. And I feel this is quite a distinction between, say, academia and non-academia, is the fact that you actually have to work in teams to deliver a product. I know for
Mhm.
sure that academia, whether it is in academia, whether you are a student or a researcher, it can feel very, of course, you're working on collaborations, but it's at the end of the day, it's your own thing and you are the boss of that thing. So you may not necessarily you have deliverables, but not have to work in a team. So and you did your master's at Penn State. And so maybe, you had that going. And then, when you go into the industry, you're like, no, you've got to follow the instructions and be part of the team. So I think that's different. Like you got collaboration and teamwork in academia, but it looks different outside of,
Yes.
for sure, for sure. Um, what guidance do you have for, early career economists just starting out in the profession who want to develop a successful career outside of academia?
Networking is really important. I was thinking about this last night a little bit. When I finished grad school, I was not planning to move back to Minneapolis. I was planning to live in Pennsylvania for a while. I had bought a house and I really loved it. You weren't done with grad school yet, so I couldn't possibly leave my best friend, right? I'd made a lot of really good friends though, and I liked being in Pennsylvania. And I had, if I remember right, I had like I think I had three job offers, at least two, and a third one where somebody was really interested in hiring me and trying to get the funding together. And why was that? It was really just working with the people that I knew. So one of the jobs I had mentioned to wasn't my what's the word? Advisor? Yeah, it wasn't my graduate advisor, but another professor I knew in the department. I had said, I'm really looking, do you know of anything out there? And like we had a relationship. I didn't go to him just point blank, do a cold call on him. But yeah, he was like, well, actually, this group is looking for someone and you could interview. So that was one. And then another one, I had gotten to know somebody in the dairy science department who wound up leaving. And had gone to work for a bank and I connected with that person, was like, I see you're hiring in your office. I used to work for a bank. What do you think about this? And so same thing. And then someone from my committee actually was like, I would like to try to find funding to keep you on to help me with some cross-functional projects. This was in the engineering department. So I think networking is really key. And it's not just like handing out your business card or being like, I'm looking for a job. It's just having relationships with people and letting them know what's going on with you and letting them know what you're about. Like we used to say at General Mills, what's your brand? So, my brand at this point is like I'm very trustworthy, I'm genuine. I'm good at making complicated things simple. And I really, I'm good with relationships. That's my brand now. But just letting people know what you're about, and don't be afraid to ask people early in your career for connections. If there's a mentor program, I took advantage of that because typically people who are willing to connect with undergrads, new grads, are people who want to help them, whether it's to give advice, to mentor, or even to try to help them make connections. I'm always happy to help undergrads. Like if I don't have a connection to be like, hey, I got a friend that works in this space. Let me see if they're willing to talk to you. I mean, I can't get you a job, but I can try to like just keep connecting you. So people really do get it. Don't be afraid to ask. And then keep those relationships up. For a long time, I talked to my undergraduate advisor. He's the reason I went to graduate school. And I
Mhm.
still talk to my graduate advisor. We may even go visit my graduate advisor this year on spring break as a part of a larger trip. So it's good to keep those connections up. You and I still talk too, right? Like, and I'd like to think of networking like, I mean, some of it is just friendship,
You're right.
maintaining those relationships. And yes, it takes some time, but it's really worth it. Almost, I would say like the Daily Dairy job came because the woman who owned the publication knew me from, I had worked with her at General Mills. I had hired her as a consultant at the time. And so she knew me and she knew kind of how I worked. And then the job at High Ground kind of came through a friend of a friend who was like, hey, you should connect with so and so at High Ground. She's always networking. And so, we started networking together and I just kept, selling that. Hey, I take on projects at times, and if there's stuff you guys might ha not have time for, like maybe I can do that for that might be something I can do. And eventually it turned into a lot of work and a beautiful relationship.
Fabulous. And I just, really, I just appreciate you kind of saying that you got to keep on putting yourself out there.
Hmm.
That is in some sense key to professional success. And that kind of dovetails into my final question is that, are you open to being approached by other economists, students seeking out opportunities in the private sector or just to interact with you? And if yes, how would you like that to happen?
Yes, for sure. You are welcome to. I am not hiring, and currently I do not know anyone that's hiring. So I just put that out there. Like, I don't know if I can get you a job, but I'm always happy to talk to people and just share my experience. If people want advice, I'm willing to give it, but I find the older I get, the less advice I give actually, because I'm like, if you want my advice, let me know. But otherwise, I'm just happy to share like my experience and to listen to other people's experiences. The best way to get in touch with me, so I am a weirdo and I'm not on very much social media, mainly because I don't know, I would waste so much time on social media. That's the real reason. I
I
knew
hear
early
you.
on, oh my gosh, when everybody got Facebook in whatever year that was, I'm like, I'll never get off of it. Like people are like, "Oh, you're so good. That's why." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." It's because I knew I'd be an addict to it early on. So I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me, Betty Berning, on LinkedIn. That's a great way. You're welcome to email Betty at bettyburningconsulting.com too. I'm always happy to try to connect people if it makes sense or just to talk about kind of my path. And remember too, it takes time. My consulting business, I had so many just meetings, sometimes meetings with the same people, trying to figure out how do I start to like break into this space more. And eventually I did break into a space more. It took a while. And I do think there was a beautiful plan there that allowed me to do the things like that fulfill me from a career standpoint, but also to like for me to be available to my children when they were really small, because that was really important to me.
I thank you so much. And I will say this, Betty, I really appreciate you for, I admire you for the balance that you have maintained between your work self and your non-work self. And I think that's great. With that, thank you so much for your time. This was a great conversation. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye bye.
Bye.